You're listening to The Sister Trill with Danae and Kiveli.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of The Sister Trill. I'm Danae.
And I'm Kiveli.
And we are sisters and pianists, and we have a new podcast. And today's episode is going to be all about school. Not specifically just high school, our entire school journey, what it was like for us to be in school while studying at the same time, because we were both young youth students also at the university, and we're in a special study program where we studied on the weekends and went to regular school and high school until the end during the week. So we had a very kind of alternative school life, I would say. And yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get more into that, we will first do our usual opening segment of what we disagreed on this week. So, Kiveli, do you want to go first?
All right. So it was actually very difficult for me this week to come up with something. But what I did come up with one thing, which is we were actually having a conversation about when we are recording this podcast, what we're going to do when we're traveling and how we're going to record it while we're traveling. So we were talking about what equipment we need and what equipment makes sense to buy, what price range, what quality. And very many times when we speak about these type of things, I'm more on the side of let's immediately buy something good because it's going to last, it's going to be high quality from the beginning. And Danae is more like, yeah, let's keep it kind of simple, easily transportable, and maybe not too expensive. So we were actually kind of discussing and not 100% agreeing on what equipment.
Actually, we still haven't agreed.
we still haven't decided. But we still haven't decided because we still have to factor in some information that we don't have yet. So
yeah. But
decision time is coming up soon.
Exactly.
Because we're also traveling soon.
But it's true, you are a real investor very quickly before there's something created. And I like to just do stuff first, see how it goes, and then later on invest.
Exactly.
But, yeah. Okay, so my point, actually something else. This week we had a concert together. And for that concert, we had to take the train to a station. And then there was a question. And the question was, how do we get from the station to the concert hall? And I am a very big fan of walking and just not taking any transportation if necessary. However, we were a bit late and it was a kind of a 20-minute walk to the concert hall. So I said, okay, I'm going to check the bus. And Kiveli was just like, Danae, have you ever heard of a taxi? There are taxis. Normal people take taxis. And I was already like, okay. I mean, and I actually said, if there is a taxi, because it was kind of a small city, then let's take a taxi. And there was no taxi. So, and I saw the bus was coming in 3 minutes, and I was like, let's take the bus.
And then I was
like, let's call a taxi.
No, by the time that I'd understood that the bus was going to come super soon, I was fine with it. Generally, it's just always this, you have to find the right mode of transportation for the right situation and the right time. And taxi is an acceptable mode of transportation in certain situations.
It's true. You use it more often than I do.
You would prefer to like never set a foot into a taxi, but sometimes it just makes more sense.
Anyway, so those were our disagreements this week. So now let's get into the episode. I prepared some questions.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I thought the first thing to discuss is maybe just very generally, what did you feel that school was hard for you? Was school hard for you?
From a strictly like intellectual point of view.
Yeah, getting the marks, getting good grades, all this. Was it difficult? Like, did you have to invest a lot of energy?
I definitely think that compared to many of my classmates, I felt like I needed to work less of it. I had to invest less time to learn or understand certain things. And I also think that was because I also had less time. So because I had less time, I also automatically learned the subjects and the material in less time. I think that the challenges I always found was, especially during exam season, when it was very many times the way that we were missing some exams, and some exams we wrote and some we couldn't because we were missing them due to concerts or other engagements we had, that we then had to like write exams afterwards or earlier. So that kind of phase was always very more stressful than it was really difficult. It was, kind of having to change your mode of attention so quickly, all these different subjects and then concerts in between. So I found it was more of a all the time having to be alert to kind of be concentrated in all these different ways. In terms of subjects, the only thing that I found, actually there were two things I found very challenging. I ended up graduating in chemistry, and that was definitely a challenge to me. That did not come naturally at all, especially compared to other subjects. And in the beginning of going to school, like first 4 or 5 grades, where there is more of an emphasis put on not making small mistakes, like maybe not spelling a word in the wrong way, or maybe not making like a little mistake, a mathematical mistake. It's more kind of, these either right or wrong type of situations. I found that much harder because I always tended to make small mistakes out of maybe a slip of attention or something like that. And later on in school, where it was more about the big thinking about how to approach a certain problem, or maybe interpretations of great literature, things like that, that came much easier to me, where it wasn't like right or wrong in terms of these small things. Even like when mathematics was less about, solve this exact equation, and it became more about how would you approach this problem. This is kind of like thought experiment that came much more naturally to me than these like small things. And when the calculator came in 7th grade, that's when my mathematics started to like become better.
I would also totally agree that I think that the reason why we both felt that it wasn't such a huge challenge to be good in school was because we had so many other things to do. Because I felt like because our tasks were generally harder, we didn't only have school, we also had to practice, we also had to play concerts, we had to be good at piano competitions, for example. The tasks of school in comparison seemed... Yeah, exactly. They paled and they seemed like kind of very doable. Yeah. Whereas I think that if we were, the exact same people and we had only school, we would be so focused on every little potential problem that it would have probably been harder. And I think that, that definitely plays a big role.
For sure. I'm such a strong believer in the concept of you are capable of the things that you deem yourself capable of. That basically when you need to accomplish something, then you can accomplish it. And sometimes if I think back to especially like the last years or our like final examination period, the amount of things we did at the same time, like literally kind of having this entire school curriculum that had gotten quite intense towards the end, naturally intense towards the end, and the amount of concerts we played, repertoire we learned, just the amount of time we missed from school and had to kind of revise in the train and stuff. I sometimes marvel at the fact how we did it, because now where my entire focus is just artistic and it's full on my piano career and it's only music, of course, with all the different facets. Of course, there's a festival and there's playing and organizing, but it is only music. Like there's no part of me that now has to write an exam in physics or something like that. I sometimes cannot imagine pulling it off again now, because I don't have to pull it off in a way,
I actually, some long time ago, I read somewhere that our brain never is as active as during like studying and school time, and we kind of lose that ability to learn this amount of knowledge in such a short time. And I think it's exactly what you said. If we now sat down and tried to learn new knowledge of this magnitude, it probably wouldn't be possible, because we're just not wired that way anymore. There it's obvious we have to go, we have to graduate, we have to do our exams. It's interesting. But generally maybe we should mention that we were both on the better side of things in school. We were both...
We had to be.
We had to be good in school. We kind of had a deal, let's say, with our school, because we were already quite intensely into the whole piano thing, that we were allowed to miss class if there was a good reason. So basically either a concert or a rehearsal or a master class. Those were the reasons, not just to practice. But if there was an actual event that we had to play at that would help us in this whole thing, in this whole career, let's say, if you could call it that. And that point. And we could miss class. It was no problem. They were really very, very relaxed with us missing class.
Unusually relaxed.
Yeah.
Unusually
but
relaxed.
the deal was that we had to have good grades.
Yeah.
As long as we had good grades, it was okay to do that. But if we were to somehow slip, then very surely that deal would be off.
And I think we had that deal with our school, but we also kind of had that deal with our parents. I would say especially our father, who was the more academically inclined and focused person from our two parents. And it was very clear we were allowed to pursue anything we liked, but if our school work had suffered, then there would have been consequences in that direction. I mean, that never happened, so I don't really know how or if he would have enforced it, but that there was always this implication. And of course, from the school side, I don't think that there was ever like a GPA we had to hit. Otherwise, we wouldn't be allowed to miss school. But there was a very clear understanding that we were only allowed to miss the classes and miss the time and kind of have this, because it was special treatment. You can't say anything. It was very special treatment. If our schoolwork was always at a above average level.
And also everything we missed, we had to then do again when we came back. So if we missed an exam, we had to write that exam when we were back. Or any homework that we missed, we had to do and then show them. So it's not like we skipped school and we're not doing the tasks. We actually did every single thing that the
actually, man, I remember these calls. It was like a very normal thing. We each had one person in our respective classes that whenever we would miss, I don't know, 1 week of school, every afternoon we would call them and be like, hey, what's the homework for that day? And then we would get all the homework and we'd had to do that homework. And it was and sometimes, you know, you'd miss the person and then you have to the next day call them and have the homework from the past 2 days, and you suddenly had double homework. It was the whole thing, and but it felt so kind of natural that
it
in
was
that
our
moment,
normal.
It was absolutely our normal.
Yeah.
Again, thinking back to it now, I'm really kind of impressed at how we pulled it off.
And also very impressed how the school accepted this.
I mean, that is incredible.
Yeah,
that is
because
incredible.
we have many musician friends and many friends that were in the same situation that we were in, where you have concerts and it is, of course, not a good decision not to play them. You have to do these things and go to the master classes, and the school just said no.
And many times what happened was that these musicians would then kind of fake illnesses and would kind of have to find a doctor that would, write that they were sick that week, and they would actually be off at a masterclass or playing some concerts. So we had this extremely privileged position that we went to a school that allowed us to do that. But we also have to say that when, especially our mom was looking for the secondary school that she decided to send us to, that was a priority for her.
Yeah,
she went to several schools.
Yeah, picked the school because of that.
So, but it was amazing, and we still have, you know, a good relationship with some of our teachers who support us to this day. So we were really very lucky to be able to very openly kind of pursue our passion while still maintaining a very normal trajectory in school.
Yeah. So obviously for the teachers, it's great when you have a student that is good in school. But I was wondering how you perceived it within the classmates. Was it cool to be good in school, or was it
just the
uncool?
good in school?
Yeah, I mean, first that, and then maybe our whole special treatment situation.
I mean,
but how was it in your class? Was it cool if you had good grades?
I don't think that having good grades was somehow uncool in my class. That's not something that, because I specifically also remember there was one boy that was very good in my class as well, and he was very much accepted within the boys. Like the being good thing wasn't the thing that ostracized me from the rest of my classmates. I think but there was something that was kind of expected. If you were good in school, the pupils that had more of a hard time kind of expected you to share
them.
your work
with
them.
Of course,
or especially, maybe not expected, but that is what then made it cool. Like if you were good and you helped your pupils, which I always loved doing and was always up for doing, that kind of gave you brownie points.
Yeah.
If you would be someone who'd be like, no, you know, don't look at my work, then that would be like weird, you know? So it was more, that's what made you cool. Being good and being generous with, you know, your work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in my class, I have to say that there was a time where it was really not cool. to be good. And I remember specifically this one situation, I think it must have been 7th grade or something like this for me, where we had just gotten back a math test, and somehow the teacher had said, yeah, and the best student was Danae, and it was like super embarrassing. And it was a test that somehow didn't go well. So like many people had gotten a bad mark. And I remember there was this situation where there was this group of girls and me, and they were saying, yeah, Danae, you don't get it. You always write good marks. You know, you don't understand how we feel, because I was somehow trying to help them, or they were sad because they got a bad marker. And then I said, yeah, no, it's fine. You don't get it. You don't get it. And I remember that I started crying.
What?
And I remember that I specifically said, I still see this scene in front of me. I said, I wish I was bad in school. What do you think? I want to be good all the time? I can't help it. I wish I was bad. I remember saying that. I mean, such a weird thing to say.
That is so interesting.
I remember that at that moment, I was like, you know, I wish I was cool because I shared their troubles.
Right,
like this type of thing.
right.
Which I think, which is great that nowadays it's not like that anymore. I think nowadays if you're good, it's cool, actually. But just as you said, also for me, of course, I always help people during tests, and I always threw around little papers with solutions. And of course, that made it good again if you were a helper. Because we also had someone in our class that was good and that was not a helper.
Yeah, that didn't go down well.
That did not go down well.
But the only thing that I did realize is I was always someone, because although I was very good in school, but I was also sometimes nervous that maybe that was the exam I didn't write well or something like that. So many times after an exam, I would kind of have this compulsion to discuss results with fellow students.
No-go.
and they would always look at me like, you either have like an A or an A minus, like chill, you know, and I was always like very worried, or so like
that's the worst thing when the good student is like, oh my God, I'm so afraid of my grade.
That is exactly it. So if you're good, but I was genuinely worried sometimes, you know.
But I totally get it, because that's the other thing. When you're generally a good student, people kind of expect that you're always going to be a good student, but it's not like that. You can also really fail at an exam. So it's totally valid that you're scared, and you know that you're like, oh, maybe actually this time it didn't go well, but they're like, yeah, stop complaining.
So you kind of don't have the right to be worried when you're good in school.
Exactly, which is a bit, it's a bit annoying. And then of course for us there was this whole special treatment situation. So how was that for you with the other pupils?
That was definitely, I would say, a love-hate relationship type thing. Obviously, because, okay, let me like try to unpack it. First of all, I have to say that I probably also didn't do myself any favors, because unlike you, I was always a very kind of dominant personality in the classroom. Not, I say just because this is who I am. First of all, I am like a very extroverted, talkative, dominant, open, loud person. So it was just also kind of what my nature is. However, it was what my nature was before, you know, kind of going through the period of reflecting on myself and understanding maybe what aspects of that over the board personality were also an act, kind of, you know. So it was kind of even more amplified than my already very extroverted nature. Then the other thing was that I feel like we were very often kind of the teacher's darlings, not because of the way we acted in class, but because we kind of gave the school a particularly good reputation, because like we would often be in the newspaper for concerts we played, and then the school would be mentioned, or we would, you know, play concerts in school. So kind of we were the teacher's darlings because of our musical ability, and that kind of translated into the way they viewed us in the respective subjects. Some of them actually kind of disliked us because of that special treatment we were getting, but most of them, I would say, were kind of very complimentary towards us.
I feel like some were actually stricter because of it,
but that was
the minority.
And most of them kind of really I would say it was kind of after we had it easy after a certain while, because again, it wasn't that we were getting everything for free. We were good. We were writing good grades. We were, you know, doing our homework. But because we kind of, I would say that someone else, where we got an A, someone else might have gotten an A minus. So like that's like the points that we were kind of given, you know? And I think that when that caught on, that definitely did not go down very well within the class.
Yeah.
And I totally get it. I mean, it is kind of uncool. And when I figured that out quite late, you know, especially like the fact that it was that way, what I started doing is I really tried to use this privileged position to help those in the class that I noticed were actually being unfairly treated to the other direction, like kind of people that had been rule breakers or more rebellious up until then, and then in the last few years really tried to pull themselves together to graduate well, and the teachers were just not giving them that second chance. So I would try to kind of leverage my position to, in a way, equalize that. But generally I have to say that the fact that I had this special treatment from the teacher, and understandably so, was definitely also a point of contention.
Yeah.
And
in my class, it was definitely a thing. There was even a nickname for me, which was plus plus kid, which basically means plus child. And it basically just meant, yeah, you're good at everything. Everyone sees you as being good at everything. You're this golden child. And it all was really, the highlight was this one newspaper article, I don't know if you remember it, that was titled Wunschkinder, which basically means
oh my god, I don't remember.
Wish. Well, what does it mean? Like
Wunschkinder, like
the
kids you wish for.
Kids you wish for, and it was you and me on the picture. It was a big article in the newspaper of our city that we lived in, and it said kids that you wish for. It was like very central. Everyone had somehow seen it that morning because I guess their parents were reading the newspaper, and they came to school and everyone was telling me, oh, hey, kid you wish for. Hey, kid you wish for. And some kids had even told me, and I mean, that's so horrible that their parents were like, see, look at what Danae does. This is what is great. This is what you should be doing. I mean, the worst thing you can say.
Of course.
And of course, it was so embarrassing. I mean, that article was horrible. And then some teachers had even like taken it and like were proudly displaying it. It was just going downhill from there.
Another thing I have to say, I remember a situation which to this day, again, I mean, with like a bit more distance perspective, I have to say I'm also so incredibly thankful to some of the students that kind of went along with it. As I mentioned, I graduated in chemistry, which was a class that not many people had chosen to graduate in. So it was a class that was placed automatically quite late in the day. So I always had like my chemistry, AP chemistry on Mondays and Wednesdays in the afternoon. And because of that, there was always this question of, are we going to write the exams already that late? When we write exams, should we write them in the afternoon, or should we choose a different day to kind of meet in school and do it in the morning? Because the argument was you can concentrate easier in the morning than in the afternoon. So because all the days that were kind of possible to do that, like there were like some hours that were free for one person with the other person, but because I for some reason would always miss I had concerts on the days that came into question, what ended up happening is that twice within this year of having AP chemistry, everyone had to come to school on Saturday and write the exam on Saturday. And I would like to say that I told the teacher, like, I'm fine writing it by myself. I don't, not everyone has to accommodate me to come and write the exam. Yeah. And he kind of, put it to a vote, and the pupil, they said, he kind of asked the pupils, would you rather write it then or on Saturday? And they said, no, we will write it on Saturday. And I remember everyone that came to school that morning for the exam, they were like, so we're now in school on a Saturday. How are you doing, Kiveli? And I'm like, I'm so sorry, And so, there were all kinds of situations where everyone, we were never perceived neutrally. I think from the moment we stepped in school, we were never just Danae and Kiveli or Danae and Kiveli good in school. We were always Danae and Kiveli, the pianists,
the piano girls,
and everything that came with it.
Yeah.
And some of it was, of course, very positive. Yeah. And some of it was, I would say, negative, but I totally get it. I totally understand it.
Right now, we highlighted a little bit more of the negative, we were never bullied, I would say, but of the more maybe nagging remarks. But generally, when I look back at my school experience, I do think that as a total, my friends and the students were very supportive of me, generally. For me, personally, I feel I definitely had a lot of friends. I didn't feel alone. And especially as the years progressed, especially towards the end, if I think of the last 3-4 years of high school, it was, I mean, oh no, high school is only 3 years, right?
4 years.
But,
High school is 4 years,
okay,
I think,
so then if I think of high school, then I must say that I feel like they were very cool with it. And everything about it. I mean, when I think of what they wrote in my yearbook, it was all like, Danae is graduating with the best grades and with the highest amount of hours missed, from being in schools and things like that. And they were very nice. And I think a big part of it is how we handled it also, because I think we were both very consciously trying to not be, cocky about it, or to not be, feel like we're something special. I remember always thinking to myself, really trying to be as normal as possible and as super humble as possible. Why are you laughing?
I love it because you like very elegantly put like, we did it. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm not sure if I did that very well.
Well, for me, I must say that I think that in the end, this is really what it came down to. And that's also what many people told me, that I never talked about my concerts. I never talked about my whatever accomplishments or competitions. I was always trying to be just a schoolgirl when in school.
To be honest, if I think about it, I don't think that I tried to kind of even amplify the narrative of me as a pianist. But unlike you, I think you were always generally also a bit more, I would say, calm and collected, like generally. And I am not calm and collected. I'm much more impulsive. And I would say I had one quality that I've since very hard, like in a very hard way, worked on getting rid of and kind of getting under control, because it is something born out of insecurity, which is that if I felt like I knew something, or I had a kind of a comment that had good quality in my mind, it was almost, I had to say it, So I think that my general demeanor in class was sometimes a bit insensitive towards the rest. And that had nothing to do with me as a pianist or anything. That it's just who I was. I was very, like, I would be the person that would maybe say something without raising my hand, But but not like in a, not instead of someone else. It wouldn't be like I would take the answer away from someone, but I would always time it well. So I had also like a comedic element and stuff. But, and the other thing is that I've never been very good at kind of respecting authority for authority's sake. I mean, I respect competence and give competence a lot of authority. And also because in my general life, I was around so many adults and was used to also being taken kind of seriously by adults and being respected by adults, being complimented by adults. Like very many times I would almost, very wrongly, I would say, see myself as the teacher's, not as a teacher's equal on an intellectual level, but kind of, I would see it more of a conversation, not like I'm going to teach you something now, if you know, but I would kind of more strike up a conversation or almost be combative if I disagreed with something, you know? And all of this definitely led to the fact that I would say the thing that I did well, like the thing, and I would say that definitely got on people's nerves, very understandably so. Of course, some teachers found it charming. Some teachers that especially maybe liked rebellious spirits and liked the fact that I was genuinely engaged in the material. I mean, I wouldn't say things that had nothing to do with the material. It had to do with the material. So kind of many teachers also liked that I was very present and interested in what was going on. Some teachers definitely didn't like that. The students, I would say, kind of got used to it, but definitely also were, I would say, ambivalent about it. But what saved me, I would say, in the end, was the fact that I like the same combative spirit that I would put into, like if I didn't agree with a point of the teacher, I would put if I felt that the teacher, for example, treated someone else unfairly.
So you would go to someone else's defense.
Yes. Like, and generally I would not, and this helping out that we said, like I was always offering to help wherever I could, whether
Yeah,
it was
for
with,
sure.
with, you know.
I think this was the base of our school career, that we were really the helpers. I think it was such a classic situation before the test. People were like, hey, can you please point out this and this and that?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we would like, and then also like if I finished early, I would always then get someone else's paper and start filling out answers.
What's your
and
what's
everything.
your most extreme helping a student story?
My most elaborate
Yeah.
cheating story. I mean, not for me cheating, but for someone else.
Well, cheating for like, you know, helping someone else out.
I mean, there are a couple. I think the really most elaborate of them was that someone was writing a math exam so it was like a assembly hall, you could say, in our school. He was writing it in there with a group of people. He deliberately sat at the window. I was not writing that test, so I wasn't even part of it. He sat at the window, took the test, threw it out of the window where I caught it. Then I filled out any answer that I could in within half an hour or something like this. Then I came into the assembly hall where they were writing a test, which is like such a no-go to go into the assembly hall when they're writing a test, and somehow had this perfect excuse that I had to talk to the teacher at that time to tell him something that maybe I don't remember, but that I would be maybe missing class tomorrow, you know, because I had a concert or something. And while going in, of course, left the paper there. And,
wow.
And that worked out, by the way. It happened. Like, no one noticed. I mean, I don't know if someone noticed, but no one said anything, at least.
That is really elaborate. That is, wow, that is incredible.
I think that's the biggest one. Of course, there are all the classics of throwing things around.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, what is your most elaborate?
Not that extreme. I mean, but I also think that, because I obviously went to school 4 years after you, things got so much stricter.
Yeah.
Especially when smartphones became a thing. I remember like there was this like sweet spot of maybe 1 year where it hadn't really become that clear to the teachers that basically a smartphone held all the answers to everything. Be it that you just take a picture of the phone, send it to someone, they give you the answer, they send it back like this, or just, you know, Googling dates in history and stuff. So within that sweet spot, I remember I was just in constant communication with people all the time, like talking about answers.
Like on WhatsApp
and
or something.
I don't even think WhatsApp was a thing. Maybe it was just like SMS or maybe or Facebook. I don't know, but it was like, I remember this time where we were like communicating via
that
phone.
didn't exist when I
and
was
what
in
would
school.
happen was that we would all sit again in this assembly, and then like someone would look at me, kind of pick up their phone, and then I knew like, okay, so then I picked up my phone and would do it. And then the other things were like, obviously like the normal things of exchanging tests within an exam, and then, you know, you finish theirs and they give yours, you know, back.
A super classic one for us was there was this one bathroom that you could use that was connected to the assembly hall. That's the only one you were allowed to go to. So I would go there, leave something there, you know, then the next someone would go pick it up. That was a very classic one. But a lot of cheating was happening, for sure. I think there was not one exam where I did not do something to get an answer to somebody.
Wow.
But my next question that I was thinking about was, what do you think does it take to be good in school, to be a good student? Because you mentioned that you were a bit of a rebellious, like trying to be on teachers' level. But, you know, many people always criticize the school system, saying it's like you have to be in the box. But what would you say is, like, what does it take to be a personality that is going to become a good student?
I think that the most important component of being a good student is curiosity. You have to genuinely be curious about the material.
Yeah.
And
if you're not,
well, I mean, I think it's more of a world perspective. You know, I'm just genuinely an extremely curious person about anything. Like the less I know about something, the more I want to know about it.
Yeah.
Even like the subjects where I knew that it wasn't my cup of tea, like say, for example, like physics, still, I mean, I was curious, you know, I was curious to be like, okay, maybe I can understand this and this and that.
Yeah.
The whole reason why I even picked chemistry, despite knowing that it's another one of those subjects that didn't necessarily come naturally to me, is because I knew that it would be the only time in my life, I already knew I was going to study music, that I would ever be confronted with this type of knowledge or this type of thinking in a regular way. Obviously, I can go and buy a book, and I remember learning about all these things, why we see colors, like what chemical reactions are involved in the way we perceive colors, about how batteries work and how chargers work, and all these obviously extremely basic things. I mean, chemists would probably laugh at me. But I remember being so interested in getting this kind of type of knowledge that I knew I would never get to afterwards. So I think I was also the person, when we got a book to read, I always wanted to read it. Many people were, I have to read 30 pages. I was the person that would go home and read the entire book in the first day because I was genuinely interested in it. There was one book that I didn't read because I started and I just couldn't get myself to read this book. It was called Tauben im Gras. I forgot the author, but it was some post-Second World War specific subgenre book with stream of consciousness writing. It was all about the entire book took place in one day from 14 different perspectives, and you never really knew when the perspective shifted, and it was all about the commentary on the mundane, talking 5 pages about the color of an orange or something like that. And I remember I was like, okay, this is not going to happen. So this is the only book I actually didn't read.
No, I definitely agree with you that being curious is the best ingredient to being successful at anything in life. And if we actually enjoy what we're doing, also when we're practicing piano, for example, if we enjoy what we're doing, then not the success, but also the success, but also just getting better is going to happen much faster, just almost automatically. But I think that you can also be good in school, for example, by faking it a little bit. I think that you can, a good student doesn't necessarily have to be a super clever one. You can learn a lot by heart. You can kind of fake it a lot.
Especially in school. It's in the school system versus,
Exactly.
Not in life.
In the school system.
Yeah.
And also, I think what I always found very interesting was when we had a subject like English or German or French, like anything with languages or history, or you had to write an essay, for example, there would be this system of giving points to the student. It was kind of called the expectation horizon. That's what it was called in German. And there were certain points when you mentioned them, you got a point. If you mentioned a thesis that they thought was nice to mention, you got a point. But if you mentioned something else, you didn't get a point. There were only four
points.
Extra points.
Yes.
Exactly.
I always had those 4 points for.
For different ideas. But let's say you wrote an amazing essay with amazing ideas, but didn't mention any of the points that they were anticipating, then you only got 4 points, and of course a very bad mark. So I also think part of being good at school is kind of anticipating what they want you to hear and just totally playing into that. It's not necessarily the most revolutionary people that are going to be good in school, which is a bit sad also, that the system is made like that.
Ingenuity is not rewarded as much as conformity.
Yeah, exactly. I pulled up a little survey on, a survey or a study on the 5 greatest predictors of student success. So generally what predicts that a student is going to be good in school. And these are these character traits that we were talking about. So the first one, they say the number one is getting connected to the right people. And what they mean by that is that when you're in school, that for example, your school friends are not your only friends, that you have other people too that are like a group of people that are good at other things, for example, in your hobbies or something like this, because then this is an interest that keeps you going and is a motivation to be good in school.
Oh, so what happened to us.
Exactly what happened to us. And this is a point that I would have never thought of as usually the number one point.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but this is exactly what it says. Being engaged with other people outside of class, getting involved in activities with new people, creates a support system that wants you to always continue and be good at school as well.
That is fast. I would have never thought, because I would have thought it's almost counterintuitive. Like if you've got something else that holds your attention, you give less attention to your schoolwork, ergo it's more likely you're going to get worse in school.
But if we think, for example, of our musician friends, there are actually many that exactly as it was in our case, were very good in school and kind of did it on the side.
Yeah.
So there really seems to be
Yeah.
something to that if you have...
It's this again. It's this. It makes sense. If it has to work on the side, it's gonna work on the side. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
What
also
else?
thought it was interesting. So number 2 is possessing adaptability and resilience. That's kind of an obvious one. I mean, the adaptability one I think is interesting because I think that plays into, playing into the teachers' interests and what they want, because how when there is a teacher change within a subject, you kind of also have to change and be with that teacher.
Yeah.
So being an adaptable person.
But I also think adaptable in the sense of just, the way your mind has to look at things when you talk about, for example, analyzing an essay in English versus the way your mind has to look at things when you're talking about probabilities in mathematics.
Yeah.
That is also like adapting.
Yeah, for sure.
Which parts of your mind to engage in.
Yeah. And then
engage with.
Number 3 point is developing high emotional intelligence.
Yes.
So,
that I understand.
Yeah.
That is more
that
the
is
teacher's
more what I was
situation.
saying with the teacher. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a clear one. And then the 4th one is that you have to target a clear outcome. And they have divided that into 3 possible outcomes, which are basically what motivates you. So the one outcome can be autonomy. The student works to create an autonomous future. So that's kind of obvious. The second one is that you believe in growing and improving, so that this thing that you're doing is helping you improve. And the third one is purpose, which I think is what you said with curiosity, that you feel like what you work on is meaningful. You're working towards a goal that is meaningful. And these are the main things that were mentioned for predicting students' success. And also a little fact that they included was that when you have a mentor, so for example, if you're in 1st grade and you have a mentor from 4th grade, this type of thing, that really makes you want to be better in school. And they measured that employees, even in companies that have mentors, go on to earn thousands more than employees that didn't have mentors.
Interesting.
And I thought about that, and that also makes complete sense if you think about it, because you want to make your mentor proud. You want to fit in and show her or him that you're good at it too.
Yeah, and I think another thing that, especially when I try to remember why I was good in school, is I feel that definitely naturally eloquent people have it considerably easier. And also people that are less shy. I mean, there were always teachers that, in these moments where we would get our oral score.
Yeah.
Because the final note you would get on your paper would be a combination of your oral note and your written note. And your written note would be the average of your last 3 exams. And the oral note was, of course, a much more subjective thing. But basically every 3-4 months you would get an oral note in that subject, and then that would kind of be combined with your written note. And there were so many teachers that always kind of said to the shyer people, just come out of your shell and have courage to say something. And when, they would have then said 1 or 2 things, they were I noticed you're really trying, but when you say something, you always say something of really good quality. So, kind of if you weren't someone supporting them, but the truth of the matter is that if you weren't someone who naturally just, was present, like me, that did not play in your favor.
Yeah.
You had to kind of count on the teacher finding you, I don't know, maybe inoffensive enough to try to be to try to help you in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So definitely someone who was eloquent and someone who was not shy was perceived better than someone who might have equal amount of knowledge and the equal amount of correct answers, but was more quiet and kind of shy and introverted.
Yeah, absolutely. The next thing that I found interesting is to talk about what we even learn in school. I mean, obviously we learn about certain subjects and acquire some knowledge, but maybe you say first and then I can tell you what I think. But
I mean, I think we agree on it. I think the main skill that you acquire in school is the ability to know how to learn.
Yeah, exactly. You
Basically,
learn to learn.
You learn to learn.
Yeah.
That's the main thing you do. completely independent of what you end up studying afterwards.
Yeah.
Most of us are not going to use about 90% of the knowledge that we learned in school, just the knowledge of the one subject pertaining to the thing you're going to end up dedicating your life to. But you learn kind of the ability to inhale knowledge as quickly as possible, kind of reframe it. If you read a text, to then be able to explain what it said. And you learn, your mind becomes quicker into switching gears. As I said, like, you've got the first subject of the day is math, and then the second subject of the day is geography, and then the third is history. And, everything requires a different way to engage with the material. So therefore, you kind of learn to get to know your own mind, and that's what it does, and that's exactly how I felt what I learned in school.
I mean,
more than anything
obviously,
else.
I completely agree, and I think that's the most valuable thing that you learn. Obviously, some general knowledge is also valuable, but if I'm completely honest, I've definitely forgotten a lot of the things that I learned in certain subjects that I'm not in contact with right now anymore. And it's just that I learned how to be quick. I developed all my methods during school of how to prepare for an exam, or how to prepare for just something where I need to perform. And I also learned to really be good under pressure, in the sense that, I had concerts, then it was midnight, then I was preparing for the exam that was in 7 hours and next morning. So just these things were more...
So what I actually want to ask you, what type of learner are you? Like, if it's a knowledge-based subject, like say history, how do you...
you have to have the facts.
Exactly. Or how do you tend to learn?
Well, I must say that for school, I usually started learning pretty late. I mean, I started learning maybe two or 3 days before the exam. I tried to avoid starting on the day before, which I know was your technique. But I usually started late, and then I just kind of read through the facts, probably wrote them down once for myself, and that was that. I mean, for history, for example, I usually already had kind of a picture of what was happening. I wasn't a complete newbie to the concept of the French Revolution when we had already talked about the French Revolution in class. So, but I usually just wrote it down, and then this was my method of learning it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I had these, like, the only thing I would do, I would start learning extremely late. Like, usually I would start learning in the moment where I knew that if I didn't start right now, I wouldn't be able to finish the material until the exam, basically. So it would usually be the night before, around 10:30 p.m. after already having procrastinated successfully for a couple of hours and practiced and done everything already. And I would usually just, I was always a big fan of, like, not color coding, but, like, having information in a very organized manner.
Like
visually organized manner. So usually I would always end up, as you, going through the material and then reducing all the material to one page, and then having it all on one page, and then that was the page that I would learn by heart, or kind of really examine well. And if I would go to school the next morning and I had 1-2 hours before the exam, I would always look at this one page. Like, I always like to reduce everything to, like, a small geographical component, because the thing that would always stress me out is if, like, the information was in 12 different places, so you have to look up different pages, and this, I wanted it all in one place. So that's what I would usually do, and I would always kind of have it in a visually pleasing manner that would kind of help me. And in more, I would say, logically inclined subjects like math and things, I would usually just do practice
I would just write out, like, the formulas,
Yeah, but I was, like, more of a like, exercise. I would exercise. I would practice with, like, the exercises that our teacher would sometimes recommend. Yeah. And if possible, also kind of, reduce the knowledge to a more easily digestible format.
So, like, after now that we're at the point that obviously we finished school, and we both finished with what in Germany is 1.0, which is, like, the best mark you can get. If you look back, like, in hindsight, do you think that it was important to be good in school? We both went into a job where it was completely not useful to us that we had good marks, because no one wanted to see them ever. We entered university with an entrance exam where we had to play the piano and were marked according to our ability.
We didn't
to
even
play.
need to have graduated high school. So.
I mean, in our lives up to now, at least, no one has ever asked us to see this graduation, and we haven't needed it ever.
Yeah. I think it was incredibly important that we did it. And I would say the first reason is because of this learning how to learn. We both know many people within our profession that decided to stop school early on, either very, very, very early on in countries where you can actually decide not to go to school, where it's
like
kind of
6th
accepted.
or 7th grade.
So they literally had basically an elementary school education and then extremely intense piano education, or even the candidates that kind of stopped after 9th or 10th grade, just didn't graduate. And I'm sure that, they're going to be fine, obviously, but I feel that there is so much more to life than just playing the piano. And you learn about, and you kind of have these first connections to these other topics in school, like all these other things that exist. And of course, that cultivates your other interests that then carry you through your life. Yeah. Just simply also, there's so much more art than playing the piano. There is books, there is paintings, there is history, which is, I find, art history, and all these things. And I find that so many things that I learned in school that are not directly connected to, for example, piano technique, I do apply when playing the piano. Yeah. It's kind of this world view that you need. You need to be a well-rounded person to be a good artist, in my opinion.
I also have to say I'm so grateful to our parents that really, enforced this in us from the very start. It wasn't ever a question in our household whether we would finish or not finish school. But it was very clear that we were going to do it. And I also have to say that I think it makes us different people, and it is so necessary. I would wish it for my children for sure. And I think that in any profession that requires a lot of dedication from the start when you're very young, any artistic profession, dance, or maybe also sports, all these things where kids already early on somehow have a job, you could say, there's always the danger of then saying, okay, I don't need school, because it just, as it was with us, we don't need school in our profession. We can be successful without it. But actually, yes, you don't need school, but you need the experience, I think. And I think it tells for us in your playing, if you've lived certain things, even just the social things. I think the social dynamics of school are so important. Being in that group, knowing what it is like to be, minimally bullied, or also to sometimes be the one, that's more dominant, knowing how to deal with group dynamics, how to approach people, all these things I think are so important. Now, if you ask me whether it's important to be good in school, I think that's a different subject. For us, somehow it was, but I think, especially if you've reached a certain grade, I must say personally, I don't think it's necessarily important, and it's not going to change your life, whether you're good or bad in school, especially if you're in an artistic profession where no one cares about your grades. I think just do it for the experience. That's important. Of course, if you want to study law or medicine or psychology, you have to be good in school. But I don't think it, makes you a better person or a more interesting person.
Obviously. But I do think that it gives you confidence to have been good in school.
Generally, to be successful at something.
Exactly. It gives you confidence. At least I know that when I finished school successfully, the way I had wanted to finish school, it gave me like this basic amount of, I can cope with anything that comes my way, in that situation. Especially because I graduated with chemistry and I was like ecstatic that I managed that.
I think one important thought, which is, this is my personal opinion, I don't know, maybe people will disagree with me, but I believe that school should almost never be super hard. I think that a lot is the attitude with which you approach it.
I agree so much. I know exactly what you mean.
And as we said, because we had so many other things we were focusing on, the difficulty kind of paled. And I feel like if you go to school with the attitude of, oh my God, it's going to be so hard.
Yeah.
How am I going to do this? And math, oh my God, so difficult. Then it will be hard.
Yeah.
But I think that if you as a parent, and this is really what our parents did with us, instill in the children, of course, you're going to be completely fine. It's going to be easy for you. Then it will be easy.
I mean, the worst thing you can do to a child is tell them, I was already bad in math, so don't be frustrated if you're also bad in math. You know, you'll probably also be bad in math. Like, I remember from our side, both our parents were also themselves good students, good in school. So it was kind of implied that, of course, you're going to be good in school. Like, it's not even a question. And of course, there is a difference between communicating that with pressure and communicating that with just trust. And I think that with us, there was a combination of both.
Although really, concerning school, I felt like there was really almost no pressure.
I was uncomfortable coming home with bad grades to our mother.
Okay.
I was uncomfortable.
I mean, I
also
had
to our
bad
father,
grade.
but our mother was the one that we would have to give the exam to, you know? I mean, I remember... That's a little... I just remembered a story. So basically, it was in third grade or something like that, and I had written a C in dictation because, as I mentioned in the beginning, in those first grades where it was, in my opinion, much more unforgiving than later. Because in elementary school, the way it was scored was that if you wrote a dictation, right, and you had one mistake, it was a B.
Yeah,
if you had two mistakes, it was a C. So. And 0 mistakes was an A, right?
You had 2 mistakes, deal with it.
And I had 2 mistakes, and I remember to this day what mistake it was. It was the most unnecessary mistake. I can tell you what the mistake was. So it was the German word for girl is Mädchen. And I don't even know how to say that in English, but if you write kind of one word
you have
and
to
then
divide the syllables.
Divide the syllables within the, like, to start the word in the next line, and there are certain rules in dividing them, right? So I divided it the wrong way. Instead of doing met and then hien, I wrote me and then tien. Fine. Well, but I didn't even have to divide it. I just divided it because I didn't want to, like, miss the space. Anyway, I'm frustrated to this day. It doesn't matter. I wrote a C, and I remember I faked our mother's signature.
Oh, really? You never
because
showed
I was so
her?
scared.
You never showed her?
I'm not scared, but scared, yeah. So remember, I went home.
I think you were scared without reason.
Maybe.
Because
I remember
the one bad grade that I wrote was in math, and that was a D.
Yeah.
And for me, it was the end of the world. I was crying, and she was just like,
chill. Yeah, but here's the difference, and maybe that's also kind of the way I approach school. She thought, like, our mother knew that you were kind of learning for school. You know, she kind of thought, you know, you're learning as much as you can. Therefore, if the situation came up where you wrote a bad grade, it kind of wasn't your fault. You did as much as you can. She never trusted that I did as much as I could. She always thought, I don't know why she thought, because I did learn for school. Yes, I didn't learn as much as you did.
You were more last minute, maybe that's
I was more last minute, but I usually brought home the same grades as you know? So, but she was always so skeptical of the way I worked. Because I worked differently. I was far more last minute and I think I also learned less than you did, actually.
So basically, you were more of a genius. That's what you're saying.
No, but that's why when I did come home with a 2- or a B- or a C or something, and the mistakes were unnecessary. But again, if you boil it down, all mistakes are necessary. All mistakes are avoidable, you know? She would always come like, you know, if you would have learned more, you would have written a better grade.
Okay, I see.
So that's why I was always so reluctant to show my bad grade, my bad grades.
But I mean, I don't think anyone, neither our mom nor our father, would have said, you know, oh, how dare you write a C, or, you know.
No,
like
but
this.
I remember that first.
I think it was
C.
your own I think we put a lot of own pressure.
Yes, probably.
Also on ourselves.
But I just remember this scene. I'd gone up to our bathroom and I'd kind of I'd seen like her signature on another document, and I was there, and I was kind of, my idea was I was first going to do it with a pencil until I got it perfect, so I could like erase it again, and then I would overwrite it with a felt tip pen. That was my whole thing. So remember, I at least tried it for like 8 tries.
Was that the only time you faked her signature? That one time?
maybe there was one more test, but it would have also been in like elementary school time.
I also faked her signature once, but it wasn't for a grade. It was when I remember still which German teacher it was. It was a German teacher, and she wrote into my notebook, Danae is not paying attention. She's talking to her friend, and she had to sign it, and I never showed her that. But hi, Mom. Now that you're watching this, that existed. So I just faked it for that, and I was surprised that the teacher didn't even ask. He was just like, "Okay, you showed her." I was like, "Mm-hmm."
And I was so nervous the next day having to show like your signed thing. I was like, and obviously like the teachers, how are they gonna notice?
Yeah,
like do you think they remember the way your mom's signature looks?
She even told me, the teacher, she was like, "Oh, your mom must have been surprised, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, she was."
So funny. So yeah, I remember that little moment. Yeah.
Okay, so I thought for the end of the episode, now that we've talked about how great we were in school, we could do a little quiz. And I found a quiz of general knowledge.
Oh my God.
And obviously I haven't taken it either.
Okay.
I don't even know how good this quiz is going to be because I haven't looked at the question.
All right.
It's called the World General Knowledge Quiz. Test your knowledge of worldwide trivia. So I thought this could
what
be...
year was the quiz
I don't know.
So I mean,
it's from
it's
Trans
like up
Global
until,
Express.
Is it up until 2021 or is it like, I don't know, 2016
No,
or something?
I don't think it's up until 2021.
Okay.
It's more like general. I think it's like geography and things like that.
All right.
So anyway, let's go. There's no timer, so we can talk about it. Okay. So first question. Which country has the longest coastline in the world? It's all multiple choice.
Okay.
Australia, Canada, Russia, Indonesia.
Coastline.
Well, Canada, right? I would say Canada. The longest coastline in the world.
Australia has it all round. Canada.
Yeah, but Canada's much, much bigger.
It is much. Okay, I would also go with Canada.
Okay, Canada?
Okay, yes.
Correct. We did it. Whew. What is the world's most populated country?
China.
China, USA, India, Russia, China. Yeah. Obvious answer.
Obviously.
Okay. What is the capital of the Philippines? Marawi. I don't know what Marawi is.
Isn't it Manila?
It's Manila, yeah.
Yeah.
Dili, Jakarta. What's Marawi?
Do you know like how I got
Marawi?
What? Show me.
No, I already
okay.
got Manila.
Do you know, by the way, how I remembered? Because there was this one big fight between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao, and I think Manny Pacquiao was from the Philippines.
From Manila.
And wasn't it called like Manila something, Trilla, Manila, something like that? So that's how I remembered it.
Manila. Okay, we're doing well until now.
Okay.
The Great Barrier Reef is off the coast of which country? Well, Australia. Okay, that's an easy one.
Okay. I didn't know that, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that's an easy one.
I even swam in the Great Barrier Reef with sharks.
Amazing.
That's a different story.
Amazing. This is all just geography, by the way, up to now.
I'm sure there's, because it said it's not just geography.
Okay.
What is the world's smallest country?
Vatican City.
Yeah. Okay. In which country is the world's highest waterfall? Okay, I don't know that.
Which
Brazil, USA, Venezuela, South Africa.
The waterfall. I don't. What is even the world's highest waterfall?
Is it Niagara? No, is it? I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. I would just go with. I don't know.
South Africa.
South Africa. Okay. Wrong.
It's Venezuela. All right.
Okay. What is the capital of Australia? Okay, Canberra.
There we go.
Unlike what many people think.
Yep.
In which country is Mount Fuji located?
Japan.
Japan. In which country is the Cape of Good Hope? Okay, South Africa. Okay, I think these are easy
Cape
questions
of Good
up till
Hope?
now. Yeah, no, Cape Town.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You see, I didn't know. I wouldn't have known that.
What country has the greatest number of active volcanoes? Italy, Indonesia, Japan, Philippines.
Maybe Japan.
Japan? Because, I mean, Italy has obviously Mount Vesuve, but
Yeah, but I don't know.
I also don't
What's
know.
the other one? Indonesia. Oh God, I really
Maybe
don't know.
Indonesia.
Maybe, but I'm thinking like kind of where are lots of earthquakes and
Yeah,
things
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. You know, like
Japan.
where does often
Japan,
natural
Indonesia.
stuff happen, but I don't know.
Let's go with Indonesia.
Philippines. Also, okay, which country is like bigger, has the greatest number of active volcanoes? Indonesia is bigger than
Yeah.
Japan, right?
Let's go with Indonesia.
Okay.
Ooh, it's correct.
Nice.
That was surprising. Okay. The Sierra Madre Oriental is a mountain range in which country? It's
Not China. I'm going to go ahead.
No.
It says Mexico.
Sierra Madre.
Wait, can you... Mexico, what is it? Mexico, Argentina,
Mexico,
Peru,
Argentina, Peru, China.
Sierra Madre. It sounds Argentinian or Mexican.
Yeah. Okay, this is embarrassing. I think that we don't
Is
know
it?
that.
Okay.
What are we going with? Argentina? Just going with Argentina. Okay, wrong. It was Mexico.
Okay.
Nice. Where was the hottest temperature ever recorded?
These are all very geological,
Yeah,
if not
true.
geographical
It's true.
questions.
And we can cut out some. Just saying. Libya, Peru, Mexico, India. The hottest temperature. Well, I would go with probably something like Libya, right? Just feeling-wise.
Libya, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
It's correct.
There we go.
Which of these countries uses the shilling as its currency? The Seychelles, Malta, Kenya, Zimbabwe.
I would say not Kenya, right? Or maybe, wait, can we see how it looks?
I mean, it's...
Okay.
Isn't it English, the shilling? I thought because of economy. I thought exactly Kenya.
Yeah. Okay, Kenya could, but
Because it's an English
Seychelles,
currency.
Seychelles was a French colony,
Yeah.
I think.
Malta is not, is it? Oh my God.
I don't know. Zimbabwe, let's go Kenya.
Kenya. Yes, correct. Okay, which of these countries has 3 national capitals?
Excuse me?
Nepal, South Africa, Morocco, Bolivia. I have no clue.
Okay, hang on. 3 national, like,
What does
Morocco
3
doesn't have
national-
3.
No, I mean, but what does 3 national capitals mean?
Wait, South Africa has the whole situation with like Pretoria and Cape Town and maybe
Probably
it's
South
South
Africa.
Africa.
Oh,
Yay!
yes. Cool. In which ocean is the island of Madagascar? Indian Ocean, isn't it?
I know where it is, but I don't know.
It's the Indian one.
I mean, it's, yes, maybe. Maybe it's because between Indian. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Yes, the
This is
distance
all
It's very
geographical.
geographical. It's actually only geographical.
I feel like we should do one with like,
The thing is, I couldn't test what it is at BB.
Okay, yeah, of course.
because I didn't want to know the questions
okay,
before.
okay.
But I mean, we can also look for another one.
Yeah. So, okay, this is now a history, general knowledge.
Okay, so in what year were the Summer Olympic Games held in Berlin? 1936, 1932, 1934.
So, was Hitler already in power during the, I feel like there was.
Wasn't there this thing that there was kind of like a ceasefire? No, but that was a different war, right? That when the Olympic Games happened, there was a ceasefire?
That was not, I mean, there was no war, neither of these
No,
years
no,
yet.
but I mean-
So come again, it was 32, 34, 36?
Yeah.
Hitler came into power in 33, right? I feel like the Olympic Games in Germany is something Hitler would have made a spectacle of. So maybe not 31 then.
Not 32, you mean?
Not 32.
Yeah.
So 34 or 36.
Okay.
30. I really don't know.
Shall we say 34?
Because he was too busy invading the Rhineland.
We could just go, it's every 4 years.
Okay,
Right?
that's why you want to do it. Yeah,
But
yeah.
but was there a stop once? Because
Of the war?
yeah, this is what I'm unsure. I mean, they were supposed to have been in 20,
Yes.
obviously. So
So 20, which means then
24,
2000.
28, so it must have been 32 or 36. So let's go with 36.
Let's go with 36.
Hello?
That was correct.
1936. Charles the Great is sometimes called what? Father of Europe, Slayer of Rome, King of the Common Man.
Maybe Father of Europe?
Father of Europe, I would
No.
also.
I mean, I would.
Not Slayer of Rome.
No. I would say Father of.
King of the Common Man?
I would.
No, why would he be?
No.
Right?
I would say Father of Europe.
Father of Europe. Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
By population, what was the biggest state in Germany in the 1890s? Prussia, Bavaria, Saxony. Prussia.
Prussia.
Yeah. Who was the last German emperor? Wilhelm
II.
II, Wilhelm I, Frederick III, Wilhelm
II.
II. What did Otto von Bismarck accomplish? Unified German states, prevented what would have been a devastating war, stopped disease from spreading throughout Germany. Corona alert.
Unified.
German states.
Yeah.
Including civilians, about how many people died during the 30 Years' War? Ooh. 8 million, 12 million, 60 million.
I think it was like an incredibly bloody war. So I'm going to...
Including civilians. So would you say what? 60 million?
I mean, that... You know what I always wonder? I always wonder, they say that the world wars were obviously the bloodiest war ever seen, right? And did 60 million die in one of the world? I wouldn't say. But
no,
then,
yes, including everything. Civilians and soldiers and everything.
Yeah. All right, I see. 30 Years' War. So is it 8, 12, or 60?
Shall we say 12?
The interesting is like it's 8, 12 is so close, and 60 is like, I would say 12.
12. It was 8.
8, okay.
Okay.
If you think like at that point there were no bombs, so every person that died was literally killed in close proximity by another human.
That's crazy. What was Otto von Bismarck's nickname? Clay Champion, Steel Devil, Iron Chancellor.
Iron Chancellor.
Yeah. Modern Germany is made up of how many constituent states?
16.
12, 16, 22, 16. Where did Adolf Hitler attempt his first coup? Munich Beer Hall, downtown Berlin, in the middle of Parliament.
Munich Beer
Hall. How many states made up the German Confederation in 1815? 5, 32, 12.
In 1815?
In 1815.
I think 32, like a lot, right?
Yeah, I remember that there were like Schleswig and Holstein and all these things. So, yeah, maybe 32. Yeah.
Nice.
Which country imposed its rule over Germany in 1806? England, Spain, France.
France, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. In what year did the unification of Germany occur? 1888, 1779, 1871, 1871. In the 1500s, Martin Luther led Reformation against which entity? The Catholic Church, the German upper class, the German military.
The Catholic
Church.
Okay, these are easy questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
In what year did the Holy Roman Empire give way to a more modern nation-state entity? 1648, 1710, 1803. This I'm actually not sure.
Wait, the Holy Roman Empire to, what did it say? More
modern nation-state entity.
The Holy Roman Empire was the one that, like, so-called lasted 1,000 years, right?
Yeah.
Which is what okay. So, tell me again then.
1648, 1710, 1803.
I would say 1803. And I would say
that
it was
late.
with Napoleon, the
Napoleonic War. 1648.
Which state?
I mean, something along the lines of Italy.
1648.
Which other state?
I mean, 1648. No, nothing had happened yet. You know, we were like
something Italian.
Okay, 1648. But it still existed officially, didn't it? I mean,
I don't know.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna. Here we go.
I don't know.
Okay.
The Battle of Leipzig found Germans and their allies fighting which force? Poland, Spain, France.
France, right?
France. Wait, why is it only blue? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The 30-Year War was a battle between which groups?
England
Germany and
France.
Russia, Catholics and Protestants, Germany and Spain.
Oh, maybe Catholics and Protestants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What event caused the end of the German Empire? World War I, invasion by Napoleon, the 7 Weeks' War.
World War
One. Yeah.
World War I.
This is when it stopped existing, yeah. What event contributed greatly to the rise of Nazism in Germany? The Great Depression, the German Revolution, the Napoleonic Wars.
The Great Depression.
The Great Depression, yeah. How long did the Weimar Republic last? 14 weeks, 14 months, 14 years.
14 years.
Who built the Berlin Wall? East Germany, West Germany, the Allies.
East Germany.
East Germany. For how many years did the Berlin Wall stand? 28 years, 34 years, 42 years. Well, when was it built?
60 something, right?
So that means...
Was it built in 60 something or was it built in... No, it was built in 60 something,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. So 24 years. Right.
Yeah, 89.
Yeah.
Or wait.
28, yeah. Sorry, but the 21,
okay.
yeah. 28 years, yeah. How effective was the Berlin Wall in restricting East Germans from escaping the country? It stopped only the old and frail. It was very effective. It was just a powerful symbol. It was very effective.
It was very effective. Stop the old and frail.
In what year was the so-called March Revolution? 1788, 1848, 1878.
1848.
Yeah. So these were our questions. Yeah. So basically, I think we've come to the end of this whole discussing being good in school.
Yes.
At the end of the episode, we always tell a story about each other. So do you want to go first with your story?
All right, yes. So the story that came to my mind is actually a very touching story because when I was 15, I think I was 15, so maybe it was around 10th grade, I had to have surgery on my foot. So I was out of school for a week to get that surgery. And it was also right around the time where like the biggest topic in mathematics was introduced that would then later become the main thing. Analysis, it's called in German. I'm not sure how you would call it.
Analysis? Who knows?
Analytical mathematics, I don't know. and it's like, everything with the function and the graphs and all these things. And it was kind of the start of that big topic. And I had missed these very crucial lessons of the start. And I remember that I had like my book with me to kind of try to learn it in the hospital. And I really wasn't getting it immediately. I was kind of struggling with it a bit. And I kind of remember that you came to my room and you literally explained it to me for like 10 minutes and I immediately got it and I never struggled with that topic in mathematics again. And I remember I like kind of chalk that moment up to be like the turning point in like my mathematical kind of development. Because I remember that mathematics for a very long time, I was not struggling. I was just finding it specifically challenging compared to other subjects. And from one point onwards, namely from that point onwards, mathematics became very easy to me. I remember that it really wasn't a subject I struggled with at all from that point onwards. And the entire like last stretch of mathematics, the last 3 years, came quite easy to me because most of it was based on this analysis the system kind of, which once you got it was very repetitive and easy, Yeah. So, and I remember you just explained it to me and I immediately got it. It was like all these correlations, like in this function, this point is this point in the other function of the graph and blah, blah. So it was, and I kind of remember it and I don't know, it's always a very fond memory.
Oh, that's cute. My story is actually also a very sweet one. And I don't know if you remember it, but it was on the day of my like A-levels exam that I was writing in French, which is probably the one I was most nervous about because I had my main A-levels in English and in French, and English we always were speaking anyway. We grew up speaking English, so French was really the harder one for me. And I was definitely a bit nervous, and also I had, in that period of time, I had many concerts because I was doing this tour through the area that we were, not the area, through the like state that we were living in. And I was like pretty busy with the piano. And then I remember I didn't really sleep a lot and I was nervous. And I told you the night before, like, I have French tomorrow and everything. And I remember waking up and feeling a bit like, and then I think I got up earlier because maybe we started writing earlier, or for some reason you were not awake, but you had left a note on my plate. Do you remember?
Really? No.
You had left a note and it said something like, you're gonna rock it and you're the best, and you had like unpacked a little French sentence which went along the lines of bonne chance or something like this.
Really advanced. Did you use it in your exam, the bonne chance?
But it was so cute, and I remember feeling so happy and confident, and I took that note with me.
Oh my god, that's so nice.
Like,
I forgot that I did that.
And, I was feeling good about myself.
Nice. Oh, I'm so happy.
So we have two very cute stories today.
All right. So In the next episode, next Saturday, we will have, again, I think a bit of a more personal topic. We're going to be talking about our fights, basically, how we used to fight, how we've changed in that, like kind of also our strategy now, how we fight, or maybe now we don't fight anymore, we more argue or we discuss things. So the next episode is going to be all about our
Fighting.
biggest fights.
So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you again on Saturday.
Lots of love. Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to The Sister Trill with Danae and Kiveli.